Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles, as introduced by Sydney Banks, to people throughout the world. And today we have Joe Bailey, and just a little background on Joe. Joe's life purpose is to help people find true happiness and peace of mind. Towards this end, he studied psychology at the undergraduate and graduate levels, eventually becoming a licensed psychologist. For the past 46 years, Joe's desire to understand the connection between psychological, physical, and spiritual facets of human beings has pulled him into deeper understanding of the whole person and away from the current fragmented view. In his career, Joe has worked as a marriage and family counselor, university teacher, trainer of therapists, author, consultant to organizations. He has been a pioneer in his profession, weaving together ideas and insights on psychology and spirituality. So, Joe, welcome, welcome.
Such an honor and so good to be here with all of you. I guess I'd like to start with what I was just saying a moment ago before we started the recording. And that was, every now and then you get an opportunity to kind of step back from all that's happened ever since Sid had his experience. And I was fortunate enough to be involved in this somewhat early on. I wasn't one of the Salt Spring people or anything, but since about 1981 is when I met Sid. And as a young psychologist and pretty cynical at that point, when I first met him, I was like, what's this guy talking about? Oh my God, this is, it was just, it was very disturbing on one level to hear him, because it made obsolete the whole paradigm I was operating from as a psychotherapist and as a psychologist. On the other hand, it was like my soul was singing, because it was everything I had ever hoped for when I first realized I wanted to get in the business of alleviating the suffering of human beings. When I was 16, I had that insight. I wanted to work with people. And so when I met Sid, it was a feeling that I'd come home. I experienced my true essence, that first encounter with him, a glimpse of it anyway. And so part of me was just this joyful 4-year-old who'd come back home, and the intellect was doing cartwheels in my head with, well, how does that fit into Rogerian therapy? And what does that mean about family systems theory? And about what about mental illness and the biochemistry? And my brain was trying to process what he was saying, and it was a complete failure. It was a total bust. But my heart was like, this is it. This is what has been the missing link in helping people and in finding my own mental health. So that was the beginning. But as I was saying last weekend, I got the galleys of my new book, Thriving in the Eye of the Hurricane, Unlocking Resilience in Turbulent Times is the title of the book. And it comes out actually in October in the bookstores, but I had to read the galleys because it goes to print next week, and kind of get it ready to send out to the bookstores, etc. And as I read each word very carefully, just to make sure everything was right, it just impacted me at such a deep level, because the book is not only about resilience and the understanding of the human mind, the principles, and how that removes the barriers to resilience so that it can come to the surface. and how we transform, how we evolve in our consciousness and evolve in our understanding of this, insight by insight by insight by insight, that it's an ongoing evolution. The bulk of the book is really stories. And some of you, Peter on here, he's in the book. There's stories of people from recovery and inmates, the beyond recovery people. I did interviews with them. It's with people with chronic illness. It's with people who have had near-death experiences, people who were in the camps in World War II, in Auschwitz, people who have brought the principles to the inner cities, people like Beverly Hayes Wilson, many others in Modelo and the Bronx and all of these. So reading this, I'm just like, it's like a cumulative impact of seeing the power of one insight triggering another person's insight, triggering 10 people's insight, triggering 100 people's insight, triggering 1,000 people's, 1,000,000 people. It's just this, the way the evolution of consciousness happens. It just hit me. It was like seeing the whole thing by reading the book. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't know. I was just kind of editing it, and that in the meantime, my spirit was impacted with gratitude, with awe, with God, Sid was right. He said this would all happen. And just affirmation, validation of that. So anyway, so that's what I've been up to this summer, is doing a lot of editing and fine tuning on the last draft of the book, and doing my own podcast series with people who are in the book. And that too has been a delight. My next one is in a few weeks with Michael Neal, who wrote the foreword to my book. So I'm really looking forward to that and all that. So I'm happy to talk a little bit about what the book is about, but I know I'm preaching to the choir by and large here. You are all people involved in the three principles for the most part. And so I don't have to go through that so much as other than to say that why I wrote the book. That's what maybe I'll talk about. Like everybody, when the pandemic hit, that was a jolt to the world, not from just a public health standpoint, but an economic standpoint, the lockdowns, being isolated, shifting the whole way we were educating our children, in-home schooling, not being able to see our friends, not being able to go to the theater, go out to ball games, all the things that we were used to doing. And all of that affected me. But what I noticed in myself was that I would get over it much more quickly than other people. So even though I'm a human being, I still have the same dreams, hopes, and wishes like everybody else. I still have my belief system, my thoughts about how it should be. So all my emotions were triggered just like everybody else's, but with an understanding of the principles, there was a resilience, there was a bounce back more quickly. There was moments of absolute peace in the midst of the chaos, where I got insights and seeing ways to reinvent what I was doing. Here we are on Zoom. That was a year of Zoom. We're still in Zoom. It cut out all my travel that I normally would do. Couldn't go to my cabin in Canada because the borders closed. I still can't go. So there's a lot of adjustments. But as I observe myself and the people who I know who have an understanding of the principles, an insightful understanding of the principles, they were thriving in this time. They were still going through their humanness, but they were reinventing their careers. They were reinventing the way they educated their kids. They were reinventing and finding new ways to have fun and enjoy themselves and redo their businesses. And so when my publisher was going to redo Fear Proof Your Life to bring it up to date with the pandemic, um, and so I gave a talk about it to the publishing group and the president of the company, and they wrote me back the next day and they said, no, we want you to write a whole new book. It's going to not just be about a pandemic, but is going to be about how do we deal with this exponential change that we're going to be going through. Not just the pandemic, climate change, the climate, Greece is burning, Russia, our whole Western United States is on fire. The northern part of our state is full of, most days we can't even go outside. It's so smoky here. So we're really having to adapt to a new reality here. And without an understanding of the mind, we're screwed. We're going to be not working together. We'll be working against each other. There'll be conflict. There'll be division, and with seeing what's possible with the true understanding of the mind and the inside-out nature of our reality and our experience, it frees people up to float through turmoil, not untouched, but unharmed. Touched, but not harmed, not damaged. And if damaged, temporarily healed more quickly. So once we understand the principles and the true nature of resilience, that it can never be destroyed, it's innate in every human being, no exceptions, and all that we need to revive it is an understanding of mind, an understanding of thought and consciousness, not just as a concept, but as in the moment seeing, oh, I call it flat forehead therapy, because, oh, there I go again. Oh man, I really got caught up in that little thought world. And just that every time you see that, it deepens your level of consciousness. You go to a higher level of consciousness with each insight. So there's a progression, there's an evolution to each of our understandings of the principles. And you can't help but spread it, because it spreads really more by osmosis, by your spirit. When I interviewed people from Modelo and the Bronx yesterday on my podcast, they didn't go in there and preach the principles. They went in and listened to the people from a healthy state of mind. They just went in and listened. How can we help? What do you need to make your life better? And they had been used to social service agencies and everybody coming in and trying to fix them, because they were broken. And so they were always trying to fix people. And the residents said they weren't fixed. They were listening to me, because within us, we knew what we needed to help ourselves. And they helped us achieve that. So the kids started going back to school. The truancy level went down. The grades went up. The crime level went down. The buildings changed. The parents got involved with the PTA. All of these things changed because they changed inside. They got happier. They got more mentally healthy. And when you get mentally healthier, when you're more connected to your resilience, you make better choices. You see infinite possibilities. You don't feel trapped by your circumstances. The metaphor in my book that I use is the eye of the hurricane, which, if you know anything about hurricanes, and some of you probably don't have hurricanes in your part of the world, But they're in the middle of the hurricane. The winds of the hurricane are 40 miles wide, 200 and up to 220 miles an hour, very destructive. But in the eye, the core, the heart of the hurricane is the eye, which is still. Birds fly in there. Airplanes can go through the wall of the hurricane into the eye, and it's very beautiful in there. It's very peaceful. And it's a perfect metaphor. And actually, the publisher came up with that title, Thriving in the Eye of the Hurricane. And I'm like, wow, that's the perfect metaphor. Because it is within all of us, there is a place of peace that passes all understanding. Our innate health, our innate wisdom, our true essence, our true self, whatever we want to label we want to put on it, that's who we are. We also have a brain with a lot of memories, thoughts, concepts, ideas, an ego, personality, but that's not who we are. Who we are is the conscious awareness that creates this experience and can be aware when we're misusing our brain, when we're misusing our thoughts. We have built into us a feedback mechanism, feedback loop that kind of writes us back on course. And so the book is really just it's like an owner's manual for the mind in the first half about the nature of resilience, the nature of the principles and how the mind works, and then the nature of transformation, how we're designed for personal evolution, spiritual realization, and how that process works. And then the rest of it is just illustrations of that, bringing it to life through people's stories. So anyway, so that's what it's about. I'm obviously a little excited about it because my baby's about to be born here, and that's what they asked me to talk about. So, but I'd love to listen to you if you have any comments or questions or curiosities. I'd love to hear you. I guess, how do you do it?
You can just
I just have people raise their hand.
your hand, that's fine, and then we can go that way.
And
And Ellen.
will you mind? Okay, Ellen. Hi, Ellen. Unmute yourself.
Hi, Joe. Hi, everyone. I've had a deepening of an insight move this week, and it really just dropped down deeper, and I wanted to share it with you. First of all, like you're just sharing a tremendous gift with the world at such an important time. I just want to just stop and just take a moment to just say that, like, wow, for everyone who reads any part of that book. And I've been seeing how for so many decades of my life, I somehow manipulated myself to avoid lots of experiences that were in any level of discomfort or pain, physically, mentally, emotionally. And what deepened for me in what you've shared today is how rich and full my life is with this understanding, and all of it. Like, I don't even have more. I used to have more on the spiritual, well, it was good on the spiritual, like how rich the whole entire complete human experience is. And that's what you're showing people.
Thank you. It reminds me, Ellen, 3 weeks ago? Yeah, 3 weeks ago, my car was stolen. There's the principles in action here. And my nephew and I, we love to go to watch the Minnesota Twins baseball games. And so what we'll do is we'll go to a restaurant and leave the car, and we put our bikes on the back, and we ride our bike to the game because it's really crowded downtown Minneapolis, and it's just fun to ride your bike in the city. So we rode our bike back to the parking lot where we had left the car, and the parking lot was totally empty. And the restaurant was closed, and I asked the guy, I said, gee, did they tow here? And he says, no, I've never seen anybody towed here. And I said, well, my car was there, and now it's not there. And long story short, the car was stolen. And so we had to take an Uber home and call the insurance company and call the police and the impound lot and on and on. It was, it was kind of distressing. I love my car, and there was a lot of things in it that were valuable, and it'd just be a hassle, and nobody can buy a car nowadays. They're all jacked up, triple price. And so I went to rent the car. It was 188 American dollars per day to rent the car. And so, but I'm going through all of this, and for whatever reason, I didn't get upset. And my nephew's really upset. He's angry. And about the middle of the afternoon, he says, Uncle Joe, how come you're not upset? I said, I don't know. I'm just not. It wasn't like I was trying not to be upset. I wasn't thinking,
Right.
oh, don't go with those thoughts. I just didn't. And I was surprised I didn't, to be honest. And so I rented the car, and, called my financial guy, went and looked at new cars and see if I could find one like the one I just lost. And so I was just kind of doing one step at a time. And that night I went to my niece's and for dinner, and on the way over there, my phone beeps, and I look down at it, and it says, parked car. And then it gives the address where my car is. So I call the police up and tell them, and I said, well, you go over there and see if it's there. And they said, oh no, you have to go over there and just make sure it is there, and just don't get out of the car, and then call us. So the next morning, first thing in the morning, I did that, and there's my car. The doors were locked. There's nothing stolen. There's not any damage to it. They didn't take my muffler like they're taking the what do they call it, the catalytic converter. They've been stealing those. It was just perfectly. The only thing that was gone was the gas. And I was just like, yes. And so it was like, God, I'm so lucky that I know what I know. That would have been traumatic to Joe Bailey earlier in life. I'd have been so mad. I wouldn't be thinking clearly. I would have overreacted. I wouldn't have thought to do the things that I did. And afterwards, after that, I was kind of exhausted because I hadn't had much sleep getting home so late. But that's just a little, if you think of all the mini hurricanes that we can have in our lives with an understanding, it's just natural for you to kind of, well, I don't know. I guess I just say to my nephew, well, I don't really know if it's lost or stolen or what. I'll find out when I do. And once I do, then maybe I'll get upset. I don't know. But I'll know when I
I love how mind arranged for you to be near your car. I mean, right? I mean, there's no other explanation than mind arranging that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's just, but that's just, but that's just so normal for me. Yeah. Another time is since last fall, we were going up north in a rainstorm, and our car went into the ditch in the middle of nowhere. And Michael and I just sat in the car in the rain, the pouring rain, and worked on my book while we waited for someone to come along and help us. And it was like, wow, this is so great. We don't get upset. It's just, normally that would have ruined my weekend at the cabin.
One question, how did you get the bikes home?
Oh, we had to take a big Uber. It was very expensive. We had to get an Uber van.
I was like, do they have Ubers with bike racks now?
No, but we had to get a super Uber, so it was not cheap. But yeah, it is what it is.
Joe, thank you so much.
Yeah. Isabel, you have your hand up.
Oh, that was a great story, Joe, by the way. You know, it's funny, even as you and Ellen were talking and you were describing the events, one of the things you said was, you know, I was fine. And then you said a few seconds later, but then I was exhausted and I went home. And I'm having this interplay of words from your title, I as I, the I am, and the I of the hurricane, the the core, the I, the center, the premise, that when we begin with that, our comments and our feelings are, fine, if that's the I of the
Yeah.
hurricane. But I love the big but. Everybody has a big but, right? But the I, because I was exhausted. Oh, I was confused. It's so interesting to watch how us as, you know, still kind of humans or ego bots or whatever we call ourselves, we go in and out, and that's okay. And it's just that we notice it and going in, and it's who is the I that I say I am is pretty funny to me. Just watching myself say it and then hearing other people say it, and I just get these glimpses in and out, in and out, and it's as if we're just kind of half in half out but always in. But the funny part is, if we laugh at the fact that this is happening, it just all kind of comes together. And so I just got a kick out of the title of your book. I haven't even read it. I have no idea what it's about, but I can
Yeah,
kind of,
it's a perfect metaphor in that way. Yeah.
yeah, thank you for
You
that.
know, in ancient times, I was studying to be a Catholic priest, and took a lot of theology, and the professor would talk about the God as I am, the I am, and as divine beings, as being connected to the divine, because God is everywhere, every omnipresent. Whatever we use with the power of thought, I am so upset about this, you will feel upset. I am so grateful, you will feel that. I am so lucky, you will be lucky. You know, and it's not like positive thinking, it's just whatever you believe in your mind will be your experience. That's the I am-ness of consciousness. So whatever you fill in the blank with I am, that's your momentary experience. The next moment you have enough, well, what was I thinking? Oh, I was thinking that, you know, and then you have a different experience. So even I still go in and out of the inside out and the outside in. I still get caught up in things just like everybody. Yell at the TV occasionally, get freaked out about things, but it just doesn't have the legs anywhere near. It could go on for days, weeks, or months before, decades, and now it's just a passing thought. So that's resilient. Resilience doesn't mean you don't have pain and suffering and hardship and the whole gamut of emotions. It means that you have the capacity to rebound more quickly. Damien Costa has his hand up, or Costa.
Hello, sir. You can hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Hi, Joe. First time speaking to you. I read your book.
Hi, Damien.
Hi. A couple of things. You know, yeah, the eye of the hurricane. My analogy is I get it, meaning drugs and alcohol was my life story. I became a certified drug and alcohol counselor. Did that for about 3 years. I stopped it because once you're this, you're always this. I don't believe that. And it has a real similarity to the three principles. And I've done some courses with Michael Neal. Your name came up a lot. Got your book, read your book, the Serenity Principle. And so I do no more drug and alcohol counseling. I started getting to coaching because, you know, this is broken. My analogy is it's not broken, it's just injured. You know, people that are stupid, people that are stuck on stupid are not stupid. We just get stuck there. you know? So I love the eye of the hurricane because when I go to meetings sometimes, or when I worked at a couple of different rehabs. When I worked at Salvation Army, my boss would say, everybody watches you.
Wow.
That's what do you mean? You're always laughing. You're always happy. They don't believe it's real, you know? So I'm looking to get back into it. And I think you mentioned, or somebody else mentioned, there's only one rehab. I'm in LA. I'm from Brooklyn originally on a vacation
I never
since
would have
19.
guessed that. No.
Yeah. It's like I'm in on vacation for 3 weeks since 1985.
Uh-huh.
I left New York, had a pizzeria, pizza, pot, and cocaine. So special menu. So there's one rehab. I think you mentioned it. Maybe it's called Broad. I think it's called Broad Beach or something. They do the
Broad
3
Beach,
Ps,
yeah.
right? I left a message. I'm trying. I want to start volunteering because I want to see to go ahead towards that.
Yeah.
Meaning, I don't want to be a counselor that you're broke and you need to get fixed. I want to be. This is who you're being. It's not who you are. I was being stuck on stupid with drugs and alcohol. Now I get to be a human being. So, matter of fact, I'm working with Nikon that you just did a podcast with him.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm working with him, and it's funny you just had a pod. I mentioned your name. Oh yeah, I'm doing a podcast with Joe. Okay, and then I listened to it. So, if you could point the direction, I want to get more involved with. It's pretty like LA is pretty big with rehabs, but there's only one that I know of with 3 Ps.
Yeah.
So,
So, one thing I'd recommend, Damien, if you don't already know, if you go to my website, you can download a free, for free now. It was $99. We just decided to make it free after a year. We had a conference in Minnesota last September on 3 principles in recovery.
nice.
And you're probably aware of that, but you can get that whole conference for free. You can download it. So that's available. But that would give you a really good sense of, because there's interviews with people in recovery who are part of 12 steps, but also in the 3 principles. Then there's people who are just in recovery from just 3 principles because that's where they went to treatment. That was what the modality was.
Right.
And so there's a lot of interaction between people who have had a drug and alcohol problem in the past and are now, free of that.
Right.
But also we live in a world where it's mostly 12-step based treatment, and how does that interface? And so there was a lot of conversation about really digging in deeper to the 12 steps and Bill W.'s experience, and how it
Right.
really, if they'd understood the 3 principles at that time, it would have been a different way of
Right.
doing
Right.
the steps. But
Right.
that was that state of the consciousness at that time.
So I'm gonna see. I'm gonna get more involved with my thing is I can sit down, somebody out of jail, a millionaire. It doesn't matter. Me with computers are a little challenging. That's okay. So I'm gonna get more into your website. I'm gonna see how to get more involved. When I work with somebody with 12 steps, I say you have a dis-ease and an at-ease. I want to work on your at-ease with spiritual principles. And I believe the at-ease will go up and the dis-ease will go down. Might disappear, might not. None of my business. Trying to keep it light and polite.
Yeah.
So so I appreciate your work. I'm sort of putting myself out there because I've been like being lazy, but that's being selfish. I know people. I get. I can work with the worst. Every rehab I worked with the worst of the worst. Within 10 minutes, they're laughing. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And this. People can smell if you're judging them.
Yeah.
And there's no judgment. I just see them stuck.
Yeah.
So
that's how I got in the addiction field. I'm not in recovery or anything, but when I was 23 or 24, I was working at a mental health center, and they made me in charge of the drug and alcohol program. I don't know anything about it. They said, no one else does either. You're in charge. And so there was a guy who volunteered at the mental health center. His name was Bud, and he was had been an alcoholic, ex-Marine, and he was the happiest person I had ever met. He walked in the mental health center. Everyone else, psychiatrists, psychologists, so everyone's really serious and in their head. Bud would just come in and light up the place with
Nice.
his joy. And that's what I thought, I want to work with that guy. And he taught me all that he knew, and that inspired me to work with alcoholics and people with an addiction. And that was before I ever knew the three principles. But I knew that feeling was what I wanted, that feeling that
Right.
he was living in. I didn't want to have to become an alcoholic to get that.
But it's a small niche. You have like it's a small niche to see. Like people like, don't you get drained working with people? I'm like, no. You know, I get high when they go, oh, I never thought of it that way. You know, I get high then when they light up. So I want to get back into it.
Peter's nodding his head right over a couple of squares over here.
Okay, I can only see you. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so I want to get back. I want to get back into it. I want to. I'll check out your website, and I'll send you my email.
You'll get so much out of that conference. That conference was mind blowing. It was really the best addiction conference I've ever been to.
Okay. Well, I hope to meet one day. I hope hope we meet one day.
Let's connect anytime.
That would be great. I appreciate it, and I'm going to stay on listening. And thank you, sir.
Anybody else have a comment, a observation, a question, an aha moment?
Hi, you.
Hi, Ewan.
Hi. Is there anywhere I can pre-order your book?
Yeah, you can pre-order it anywhere. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, although
I can't find it. I can't find it on Amazon.
Really?
Really?
It should be on there. When I've gone on,
I look again.
Yeah, look up. Thriving in the Eye of the Hurricane, Joseph Bailey.
Yeah.
The release date is October 12th.
Okay.
It's close. You should be able to pre-order it. Yeah, and if you don't get it, go to Barnes and Noble. But just let me see who else has it. If you go on my website and you go to the book, it'll list all the places you can order it. I believe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? That was an easy question, you know.
Hi, Joe. It's Marlene.
Hi, Marlene. Smiley Marlene.
Oh, well, I just love this community and all these conversations so much. I just can't help it. My face does that.
You get muscles in here after a while. At first, it's really, your cheeks are sore from smiling.
I wanted to go back to your incident with your almost stolen car and the idea that we can be living the principles without even knowing about the principles. I remember several years ago, I was traveling in British Columbia and I hit a deer on the highway, and I don't know what happened to the deer, but my car was totaled and they took it away, on the tow truck. And I was reading a passage yesterday to my heartfelt presence hour. I volunteer, and I was reading a passage out of the Enlightened Gardener to the participants, and they talk about, Sydney Banks talked about how a meditative state could happen, fishing on the golf course. And this is, yeah, that happened to me. That after the day after my car was totaled, I was playing golf, and I don't remember ever feeling happier in my life. I kind of in the state of bliss on the golf course, and without being out of town and no vehicle. And I just thought it was interesting how we can live the three principles without knowing that we are.
Yeah, and another, that's a great point. That that resilience is natural.
Mm.
It's innate, and all of us have had moments of resilience, even in the throes of addiction. You know, I've worked with people in recovery who are in the middle of the worst nightmare life you can imagine, and have had moments of utter serenity and bliss, but they didn't understand the principles behind it, so it was fleeting. It was it was rare. But and you look at little children, that's the example we often use in the three principles. Kids are all born with innate mental health, and they fall down, go boom, and they cry, and they're over it, and they're laughing the next minute, you know, or they don't take things so
I've got
personally.
it off mute, but it's not working. What's the problem?
Pardon me? Pardon me? Somebody said something, but I don't know who it was. Trying to figure out your mute. Anyway, so where were we? I lost my train of thought. So it's natural, and often I say, you know, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. Like, even though in the moment when you're going through your childhood or through a trauma or through whatever, you might not have been in your resilient state of mind. But when you look back at it through an insight, you can experience a deep gratitude that happened. And so that tragedy or that disappointment or that hurt or that loss can transform into a positive memory. And as a clinical psychologist, I was taught that, you know, you're going to be dealing with your trauma, your pain the rest of your life, and you just have to cope with it. Is the best you can do is to cope with it. And so I've developed a million coping mechanisms from journaling to yoga to meditation to, you know, Sufi dancing. I tried everything. And it would be great while I was doing it. And then later it just, oh God, back to reality. So I think there was vacations away from reality, and then there was reality. I didn't know reality was my thinking in the moment. That's always what's happening. So it's never too late to have an insight, no matter how lost you were in the past or yesterday. It's never too late to have a good laugh about it. It's never too late to forgive yourself. It's never too late to harvest a piece of wisdom out of it, an insight. So we're always in the moment. So whatever we're experiencing in this moment is all that's real. But if you don't know that, if you think you're your past, or you're your trauma, or your rape, or your alcoholism, and you identify with that, you keep that going through identification with your labels, your past, your memories. And as long as you identify with that as who you are, you're kind of stuck with it. But once you see that you are the I am, you are the creator of your moment-to-moment experience, whatever has happened in the past or whatever might happen in the future is irrelevant to your state of mind. Your state of mind. Your state of mind only knows the present moment. Only the present moment. And now that moment's gone. And now that moment's gone. And now I'm in this moment. And now I'm in this moment. That's where it is. And as we become conscious of that, we become conscious of that moment, that we're using our thinking in a way that's hitting us in the nose. It's like that old Peter Sellers movie, about I found the bomb, or what was it? When he's in Russia and he's oh, come on, help me, someone help me. What's the Peter Sellers movie where he's the Russian general, and he has anyway, if you hadn't seen the movie, it doesn't mean anything to you, but anyway, this Peter Sellers plays this Russian general, and they're in this conference room, and all of a sudden his arm it has its own volition, and it starts attacking him. He's fighting with his own arm, and pretty soon it's got him by the throat, and it's one of the funniest bits you've ever seen in comedy. But that's kind of the way we are with our thinking. We are thinking. It looks like someone is making us feel bothered or irritated or angry, and we don't see the thinking that's actually creating it. And it's funny, if you can see it insightfully, you can laugh at yourself. You can forgive yourself that you just got caught up. And that's why whatever has happened to you in the past no longer exists. It's over. And now we're here. Now, consequences of that past may still be there. My car was stolen. I would have to go buy a new one. And I'd have to pay money for it. That would be a consequence. My account would be depleted some. But how I experience that is moment to moment. I could feel mad, I could feel upset, or I could feel, wow, I love my new car. What was I thinking? I should have bought it earlier. And then a few moments later, yeah, but I wouldn't have had to buy it if I hadn't been stolen. I'd experienced that thought. So whatever you're thinking in the moment is your experience. That's the simplicity of Sid's insight. We're living in the feeling of our thinking, moment by moment by moment. Boils down to that. Yeah, Marion, and then Micah afterwards.
Thanks, Joe.
Oh, yes, Marlene.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so lovely to be here and listen. I just wanted to share something that came to my mind, and I wanted to share also in this group was actually about maybe something actually you already said just in the last part of your what you just said. But what I came clear for me, the hardest part with the three principles is where I feel very challenged is like parenting. It's a big challenge for me. And recently I just had this insight that I realized, like, my daughter is 12 and she still pees in her pants, and it's just for me so hard to handle. I mean, it used to be like really, and then I just had that insight, like, that it's almost like we take on also thoughts of society and everything, and they're so it's just like it felt normal for me to be annoyed and to find it difficult that she still pees in her pants, and we've tried everything, and it was and then I realized, you see, it's just the way you look at it, and it just bugs me less, because it's my expectation which makes me, like, especially with annoyance, I think that's a big part. Also, I can be very annoyed easily about things, and I just realized, wow, that was like a big insight. I mean, it sounds so simple, but it was big for me, because I realized, God, it makes a lot of difference if I walk around thinking that I'm entitled to a perfect life, like everything has to be perfect in my life.
Yeah.
And that, like, if I walk around like that, I'm going to be often annoyed. It's just like, so that was for me such a relief to realize, wow, you're kind of walking around thinking your life has to be so perfect, and like you expect certain things to be that way. And that kind of creates a lot of annoyance. So for me, that was just like, I just was so happy about seeing that, somehow it just cleared up a lot of thinking. I don't know. It was just so much. I just feel, I mean, I'm going to get lost, of course.
Oh yeah, me too.
but still to have that one time that I could never figure out why do I find everything so hard? Also because I find that's another thing. I find being a single mom with a kid, I find that hard. That was like my concept was this is a hard thing. And so it was hard. It sounds so simple, but I'm just thinking, well, isn't this just your idea about how it is, that you think it's hard, so it is hard. It sounds so simplistic, It's almost like embarrassing to say it, but I just think, well, you could think of it totally different. Some people I think, oh, it's so easy for you. You don't never have to talk to anybody about what you want to do if you want to, So it's so funny. Yeah, it's.
In a way, it's you don't even really have to think differently. Yeah, just realizing that you're thinking and creating it, that moment of aha awareness, it connects you directly to mind, and mind does the work. Mind changes your perception. In that moment, you see the humor in it. You oh God, there we go again, or whatever. And so then it's not like you have to, I've got to think more positively about my child being in her pants. There's a great story in my book on chapter 11, which is on parenting and education. It's about the curriculums like iHeart and My Guide Inside and others. But the parenting story is what starts the chapter, and it's about, and the title of it is From Living in Hell on Earth to Heaven on Earth. And it's a parent of a child with autism whose child is now 21 in the story. And she says, before I learned the principles, I was living in hell on earth. The spaghetti hit the wall during dinner at night. He'd wake up in the middle of the night screaming. I was always afraid to go to bed. I didn't know how long it would be before I'm interrupted in my sleep. I could never sleep. It was like living with a newborn for 21 years. And she said, the one retreat I went to that taught me the principles for other parents of autistic kids, and I learned the principles, she said, ever since then, I'm living in the same circumstances. He hasn't changed one bit. It's the same, but I'm living in heaven on earth. And the only thing that changed was my thinking. And I didn't try to change my thinking. It just, I realized how it's created, and then mind did the heavy lifting. Now, it doesn't mean she doesn't have moments of upset or, oh God, here we go again, or be tired. I do. Just a week ago when I found out you have 5 days to completely go through your entire manuscript, and we aren't going to show you what we changed. I went ballistic and totally got upset with my publisher and went on and on. And that lasted a day. I must admit, Joe Bailey really had a shitty day in the hurricane. And then I woke up the next morning and I just went, new day. Let's take a look at it. And it looked completely different to me. And in a day and a half, I had the entire book edited. It's like, whoa. I thought it was going to take 2 weeks minimum.
Wow.
But I did all that with my own hurricane. And it's innocent, but you don't want to get the idea that if you learn the principles that you're never going to have a bad day or have a reaction, or, hey, life's a contact sport, as Sid said. Micah, you have a comment. Thank you, Marianne.
Thanks.
Yeah. For the record, it's Mika, but everybody does that. That's
Mika.
okay.
Mika, Michael, Mikey.
Oh, it looks like
My wife's name is Michael. So.
Oh, first of all, thank you for this. It's really lovely. And, I have sort of been, soul seeker and, spirit seeker, whatever, all my adult years and starting with college. And it's like when I came to the principles, it's not like, oh my God, this like whole, this is, but what I found was this refreshing quality about the simplicity, about it not being tied to a whole lot of information otherwise. It was just so clean and simple. And it really is how it works, it is how we work. And so I've just found that so refreshing and so beautiful. And I now live in Northern California. I have for about 8 years, and I'm near where the river fire happened recently. And when I first moved, I moved here from New York City. So when I first moved from the East, it was just like, even just adjusting to being in a place where there was fire was huge for me. Like fire was just not something I really wanted to tangle with. And I kind of developed a relationship with fire in different ways that made me, kind of appreciate it. First, moving into a place where I had a wood burning stove only for heat, moving from Soho, New York to that was like really interesting. and fire walking. I did all these different things. But anyway, when it's different when it's coming up to your doorstep. And I got I started getting these alerts on my phone, and it's like once I got like my car, it was a little bit of this surgeon, but once I got the car packed, I was just like, okay, if I have to go, I have to go. And I just noticed how the principles, like just how that, like how it works within you. And people are like emailing me and calling me and going like, what are you going to do? And where are you going to go? And, are you going to leave? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll know when the time comes. Well, which way are you going to go? I don't know. It depends which way the wind's blowing or the fire is coming. So anyway, I just saw them at work. Like I saw how easy it was to just be in the moment and just flow with what is. So anyway,
that's beautiful.
Just want to share that.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I love your story. I'd love for you to, if you have the inspiration to write that down. It'd be a wonderful illustration, because people say, yeah, well, that's fine with the day-to-day, but what about the fires? Or what about if your kid's in the ICU with COVID? What about that? And we have COVID stories in the book too.
Yeah, I will. And the other thing I was going to say is that, like, what comes to me is just you move. It doesn't mean that you don't experience things, but there's more buoyancy in how you experience them. It's really about having a more buoyant life, not that you don't experience those things.
Right. Yeah, it's like you got you're in the ocean, and it's turmoil and big waves, but you got your life vest on. You're not going to go under. You might go under for a moment, but you'll pop back out. Knowing you have this life vest of resilience is just, that's another great metaphor. I had never thought of that, but it's like a life vest. But thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Too bad I already turned in my thing. I could have told that story. Darn. I do this podcast on thriving in the eye of the hurricane, and I'm interviewing all the people that I interviewed in the book. But then after the book is out, then as people write me with their stories, or they can show up on the podcast and tell their stories, how the principles have helped them in this situation or that situation. So the podcast will be ongoing about how do we thrive in the eye of this hurricane we're in, political division, the economic uncertainty, should we wear masks or not wear masks, get vaccines, not get that, all of the things that people are all caught up about. That it's one of the things that helped me most when I first learned the principles, I thought, well, once I heard the principles and got the principles, I should never have a bad day or a low mood. And so I was continuously disappointed in myself, because I was a failure at that completely. I was just up and down and in and out. And some days I'd be, I just love the principles of this isn't working. Oh God, don't tell anyone about this. I was like embarrassed. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but so one of the things that's most relieving when I tell people, hey, you are going to go up and down. Sydney Banks went up and down. Believe me, I was around him a lot, and he went up and down. He was human. He just got over it really quick. That buoyancy, that popping back up. One of the stories I tell in my book is earlier on in my life, I used to do rock climbing adventures. And this is before I learned the principles, but I would take people on, on the shores of Lake Superior, and we'd down rope into the lake and climb up the sheer cliffs, and or we go out west and climb in the mountains. And it was a personal growth kind of thing. But I'd take medical teams or couples or people in recovery of different things. It was a lot of fun. I loved it. But one place that we would go was on Lake Superior, and there was a river called the Temperance River not too far from where we all stayed. And so we'd go there after climbing for the day, and everybody's muscles are really sore. And there was a waterfall, and if you got underneath it and you'd hang on it, the waterfall would just pound your back, and it would just feel like a great massage. But once you were done, you had to let go. And the current, because it was so strong and big, it would take you under the water like 40 feet and pop you up after, downstream a little bit. So you had to hold your breath. People initially were terrified. It was like, oh my God, what if I drown? I said, well, you don't want to, you want to just know, watch, I'll show you, and I'll go under. I just let go, and the river will pop you up. You have to trust that. Now, you don't know that yet, so you have to experience it, and then you're going to have fun with it. Yeah, easy enough for you to say, and they'd scream, but there's no turning back. Once you're hanging on there, you can't climb back out. You have to go under and come out. So it was a great little illustration that when we let go and trust the river, it will pop us out. When we let go in a hurricane, in a thought storm, and we trust, have that, initially it's scary as hell. When you just let go, that was an acorn that just hit my skylight. When you let go, it's exhilarating. And then at the end of every other day on the trip, they couldn't wait to get to it and do it again. Little kids, so fun. But when we go through a shocker, surprise, a disappointment, unexpected, and we're in our emotions, we're in our fear, we're in our anger, we're in our whatever emotion we're having, just knowing that this too shall pass, that biblical saying, is true. Whatever you're experiencing, this too shall pass. And when you let go of your grip on the thinking, there's an unknown for a while, and then you pop up and you can breathe again. That breath of fresh air is what happens when you have an insight. You'll notice when you have an insight, you go, and there's a release. So that's how life works. It's moments of not knowing. The chapter Peter is in, where's Peter? They're right in the middle. Peter is in, he has a beautiful poem that starts the chapter on living in the unknown, is the title of the chapter. And it's just all about that we never know the future. We don't ever know, we've never known the future because it doesn't yet exist. We can imagine the future, we can plan for the future, we can predict the future, but until the future is the now, it isn't real, it isn't happening. And when you can live in the unknown, it does something for you. In that chapter, I tell the story of a guy I met. He was a psychiatrist, and when I was doing my fellowship in Miami and the three principles, very early on in my understanding, there was a psychiatrist there, and he was in World War II as a medic, and he was in Normandy. He saw a lot of killing, and then after Normandy, at the end of the war, he was responsible for Auschwitz, to reunite the Jewish people in the camps with their families and help people, sort things out and all that. And when he arrived at the camp, he told my wife Michael and I this story. There was a guy there that he called Wild Bill because he had a really long handlebar mustache. And he said, when I saw him, I ran up to him and I said, God, wow, you look great. You must have just gotten here, maybe you can help me out. And he says, oh no, I've been here for 5 years. He'd survived in the camps for 5 years. Nobody had survived that long. It was hardly anything to eat. You never know when your time was up to go to the gas chamber, losing everything. You never know if you'd ever get out of this hellhole. And he said, how on earth do you explain that you have a big smile on your face, you look radiant. Everyone else is so sullen. I mean, he was skinny as a rail, but his spirit was bright. And he said, when the German Nazis attacked my small village in Poland, they lined everyone up that I had ever known in my life, my whole family, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, everybody but me, and they mowed them all down with a machine gun fire. I watched everyone I'd ever known die. And I was so full of rage and anger, I wanted to kill every Nazi. It was destroying me. And he said, and then I had an insight, and I realized that I was just like them. I was no different than them. I had as much hatred for them as they had for me for being Jewish. And at that moment, I decided to live in love from that moment forward. And that love kept me alive. And it kept me in a state of unconditional hope. And he said, that impacted me enough to become a doctor and then become a psychiatrist. That guy, you could be resilient in that. There must be something in human beings that can allow them to do that. And he said, and when I heard about Sydney Banks, it was the first thing in the field that I heard that explained how that could happen. And that's why I'm here. I'm fascinated by Sydney Banks. And he wrote a book about, he had had a near-death experience before that, this psychiatrist, and he wrote a book about that called Return from Tomorrow. Dr. George Ritchie, if you're interested. But he was an amazing, extraordinary human being, and he had such a peace about him. Oh my God. But he was looking for something in the field of psychology and psychiatry that would explain how that could happen. We're probably over time. I have no idea.
That's okay. Our time's up, but oh my gosh, we enjoyed you so much. Thank you so much, Joe. Absolutely incredible. Thank you for sharing your gift, your time. The way you share is unbelievable. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's always my pleasure to talk when people are so listening at such a deep level. It draws way more out. I mean, if you ever work with a client that's resistant, it's like, it's a lot harder than when someone is just like, yes, tell me more. So this is a great pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Joe. Take care. We'll look forward to your new book.
Yeah. Amazon or somewhere. Go on my
Find it.
You'll find it. It's if you find it, if you believe in it, it will come.
That's right. Sounds good. Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.